your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, I'm Jeanette Roche. Thanks so much for joining us for a look at what's been making headlines in Alberta. Rain has helped in Fort McMurray area as thousands of people remain away from home because of a nearby forest fire. Alberta Wildfire says showers on Thursday and Friday helped to lower fire activity and allowed firefighters to make progress. As of Friday, the wildfire remained about 200 square kilometers in size and under 6 kilometers from the landfill that's just outside city limits. Residents from the 4 neighborhoods under an evacuation order are not expected to be allowed back until after the long weekend. Alberta Health Services offered some tips to protect yourself and your loved ones from the wildfire smoke. They say those who are most vulnerable, including folks with COPD and asthma, should limit their activity outdoors and keep a close eye on the worsening of symptoms. If you drive, run your car fan on recirculate mode to avoid drawing in the outdoor air. AHS says if you're having health issues as a result of the poor air quality, to call a registered nurse 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by simply dialing 811. And speaking of Alberta Health Services, the province says it's restructuring AHS and creating 4 new organizations. They will be for primary care, acute care, continuing care, and mental health and addiction. The UCP says if passed, the Health Statuses Amendment Act would allow the government to take the next steps to refocus the provincial healthcare system. They say the changes will cut down on long waits for urgent care and help Albertans find a primary care provider.
The amendments proposed in this act are not just bureaucratic changes. They represent a fundamental shift in how we approach healthcare in Alberta. By updating legislation to enable better governance and oversight of healthcare, we are laying the foundation for a stronger, unified provincial healthcare delivery system.
Well, the field to replace Alberta NDP leader Rachel Notley just got a little smaller. Union boss Gil McGowan is bowing out. He said the final installment of the $60,000 entrance fee is too high. That leaves 4 candidates to replace Notley on June 22nd. They are former Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi, Edmonton MLAs Sarah Hoffman and Jody Calahoo Stonehouse, and Calgary MLA Kathleen Ganley. A total of 85,144 members are eligible to vote in our province's next NDP leadership race. The party's chief returning officer, Amanda Freistad, says this will be the largest number of NDP members in Alberta's history who will be voting. Ballots will be sent out at the end of the month, and voting will begin on June 3rd. Tyler Dawson is our legislative reporter and Alberta correspondent for the National Post. He joined Hal Roberts from Edmonton to discuss the province's NDP leadership race following McGowan's announcement this week.
Tyler, is this race still Naheed Nenshi's to lose?
Out of those 4, I do think it's fair to say that Naheed Nenshi is still the front runner in this race. One of the most important things, or one of the most significant things, is quite simply name recognition, and Nenshi has that in a way that nobody else does. Gil McGowan's been around for a long time. He was, I think, 19 years as the leader of the Alberta Federation of Labour. Been in the news a fair bit, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's all that well known across the province. That doesn't mean he's necessarily all that well known among NDP membership. But some of the polling has showed that Nenshi is known compared to the other candidates quite well across the province, and that's just not the case really for anyone else. That doesn't mean there wouldn't be a significant and serious challenge to Nenshi's leadership, and of course polling tends to capture everybody. It doesn't capture just NDP members. So Ganley or someone like that might be a little bit more popular among NDP members. It's really hard to poll down to that level, unless it's sort of internal party polling.
Did Gil McGowan announce who he's throwing his support behind after he withdrew his name?
No, I don't think he did, actually. Pancholi, when she pulled out, had said that she was going to back Nenshi, I believe. And that matters a lot in some cases, especially if you have sort of down to 3 candidates and you have a pretty big split in membership numbers. Now, I would suspect that if McGowan couldn't raise the money necessary, that means he didn't actually probably sign up tons and tons and tons of members and probably didn't have a massive amount of backing. So let's say he throws his support behind someone that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a whole lot of people moving one way or the other to influence the outcome of this race.
We will hear more from legislative reporter and Alberta correspondent for the National Post, Tyler Dawson, coming up later in the show. On the other side of the break, though, will there be a rail strike? And what could that mean for the province? We'll be right back. Welcome back. Premier Danielle Smith shared her concerns about a possible rail stoppage and what it could mean for Alberta's economy. In a media release, Smith raised concerns about the decision by workers at CN and CPKC, who announced their vote results to authorize strikes at both companies. Unless an agreement can be reached, a work stoppage could occur as early as May 22nd. Smith says that a work stoppage would shut down Canadian logistics networks, disrupting the movement of essential goods throughout North America. She goes on to say that the Government of Canada must do everything in its power to support the parties in reaching negotiated settlements. She says our freight railways and ports are the veins of Canada's economy. In 2023, Alberta exported $20.1 billion in goods by rail, including minerals, agriculture, and forestry products. Well, the City of Calgary is making a major change to its housing laws. City Council voted for zoning changes that will allow for a higher density housing in the areas where only single detached homes were allowed. The vote follows weeks of contentious public hearings, with around 75% of residents speaking out against the zoning change. A Calgary real estate broker says depending upon what side of the fence you're on, the zoning changes could be bad or good for the city.
The big thing that's happening in our city is you have a lot of people who are for this. We have a lot of people who are against this. And those that are for it are really looking for future growth. I mean, the city is growing quickly and there's a lot of things that are changing. And those that are against it, they really want to preserve what they've already built. And so there's this dynamic that's happening in the city that I truly believe only time will tell, because it really does depend on the reactions and what happens in our city moving forward.
In other news, a North America-wide road check campaign got underway for truckers this week. The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance organized a safety inspection blitz. Now here in Alberta, the annual event saw members of the Alberta Sheriff Highway Patrol inspect hundreds of additional commercial vehicles and their drivers for compliance with federal and provincial regulations at vehicle inspection stations throughout Alberta.
Overall, we're supportive of it. I mean, some people don't like it. You get pulled over, you get held up and things like that at different scales and everything. But overall, our focus is on safety. And we value that, because when we get a safety, when we get that inspection and we get passed with flag colors, it goes on our company profile, which is available on a website. So if someone wants to hire our company, they can look on that website and say, oh, wait a minute, this guy's got a bad safety record, so maybe I'll hire somebody else.
The province announced more funding to help end gender-based violence. Social Services Minister Cyril Turton says his government's commitment of $10 million over the next few years to sexual assault centers will help survivors receive the help and compassionate care they need.
We've also committed an additional $10 million for women's shelters to help stabilize capacity and support innovative programs and services. And our work doesn't just end there. With funds through the National Action Plan to End Gender-Based Violence, Children and Family Services launched the Prevention of Family Violence campaign. This campaign, and you'll see the posters next to me, is aimed at increasing awareness of the Family Violence Info Line, as well as the supports we have for survivors, their loved ones, and those struggling with abusive behaviors who want to change. A First Nations college said that their students held a sharing circle to talk about the campaign.
Within the framework of Sexual Violence Awareness Month, Chinook Sexual Assault Center in Lethbridge will hold workshops and educational activities for the community and its workers. Christine Cassie, the group's CEO, says there are a number of planned activities for young people specifically.
in the province of Alberta that they've dedicated the month of May as Sexual Violence Awareness Month. So we have several activities going on. Now at the Crossings Branch Library, we just have some engagement activities for young people to partake in that actually talk about issues of consent. What is consent? What are some of the roles and responsibilities we have when it comes to digital images? So when things are being shared and what privacy means. I think it's been about 500 people that we've been able to reach, so that's been really good. And so again, we know that information is power. The more information that we can get out there, the more education that can happen around issues of sexual abuse and sexual assault, the more that we can actually create that change to actually have that end in our society.
One of the programs for the CSAC is dedicated to giving children and youth who have experienced sexual and emotional abuse a safe space to receive the support and resources they need throughout the entire disclosure, investigation, and judicial process. Well, on the other side of the break, there's been a lot of talk about potential drought conditions in the province. So what's been done about it? We look at what the different municipalities are doing next. Stay with us. Welcome back. Even though we have seen a bit of rain lately, it's still been quite a dry spring. The province has been preparing for a potential drought this summer, though, and a major water sharing agreement was announced just last month. But will it be enough? To discuss this in more detail, here once again is political reporter and Alberta correspondent for the National Post, Tyler Dawson, who joined Hal Roberts from Edmonton.
That's sort of what the water sharing agreement is designed to address. Now, there's 5 stages to the water management drought sort of situation. If we get to stage 5, we're in a state of emergency. At this point, we're in a stage 4. So this is the point where, there are risks posed to agriculture, to livestock, to the economy, obviously, if there's going to be crop failures, things like that. So we're at the point where the government's been talking about this for months. They've been in negotiations since about, I think, late January is when they started on water sharing agreements. And what that amounts to basically is along the river basin, sort of in southern Alberta, you have various water holders. And so some of the biggest license holders, the ones that get to take the most water, so they've basically agreed to voluntarily use the minimum necessary to make sure that there's water for other users. And municipalities, we've seen some voluntarily. For example, Calgary has said they're not going to be washing municipal vehicles as much to try and save water. These are the sort of things that are happening across the province. You have irrigation districts, for example, setting lower rates of irrigation for some farmers in their districts, which, less than previous years, so not ideal for farmers, but enough to try and make sure there's enough to go around. Now, there's also a much larger water management plan that the government has released. So this has actually it's been really front of mind for the UCP for the last several months. I mean, I think not that many people maybe pay attention to water and water usage and things like that, but it is something that the government has very, very actively been keeping an eye on as reservoir levels have been very low. There's not been that much snow over the winter. Certainly, as you mentioned, the rain is going to help. But it's sort of unlikely that it's even possible to see enough rain to sort of get us back to where we might want to be, or where we would have been a couple of years ago. The sponge of the sort of water system in Alberta has dried out quite a bit over the last couple of years.
Wow. Tyler, the province also announced a new committee to study ways to really clean up tailings ponds more quickly. Now, the ponds are hazardous leftover water from the oil sands extraction process, and many would argue pose a significant environmental hazard.
Yeah, and obviously these are the images that don't do great for Alberta's PR internationally when photos of tailings ponds go around and activists talk about it. So there has been this committee that's been struck to study the issue. Not really much of a timeline on when they're planning to report back, but certainly these are, and they're often in the vicinity of environmentally significant areas or delicate areas and things like that. Of course, there have been stories over the years of tailings ponds leaking into water, into rivers, and things like that. So, it's a big PR thing in addition to being, a genuine problem for the environment, a genuine problem for industry. So this committee aims to, what are some of the ways this can be dealt with more quickly to prevent their further expansion and things like that. And so, a little bit controversial in the sense that you do have some environmental activists saying, well, look, this has been studied for years and years and years. We have ideas on what to do. Perhaps the issue is that there just needs to be more effort into doing it. So, I don't imagine this is going to be a massive controversy, but it certainly will be interesting to see what the committee comes up with when they report back down the line when it comes to the tailings ponds, because of course the oil sands industry is not going anywhere anytime soon, and that means neither are the tailings ponds until some sort of cleanup is started.
Tyler, the UCP also announced that they're looking into expanding rail service in our province, including an Edmonton to Calgary rail line, which would be kind of cool, and a train that would run out to Banff and Jasper. Now, the study alone, however, is going to cost taxpayers around $9 million. Now, what would a project like that potentially cost? How many billions of dollars? And will we see even a referendum on it?
There's been no word on a referendum. At this point, basically, they had this sort of vision. Premier Danielle Smith is a fan of this idea, and so they're going to be doing this feasibility study, as you say, a $9 million study. Now, I went right down in the weeds of Alberta's history with passenger rail studies. It's happened a pile of times: 1976, 1985, 1986, 1985, 2004, 2008, 2010, 2014 were the years that this has previously been studied. And obviously it has not happened. We have not had intercity rail transit since the Dayliner shut down between Edmonton and Calgary in 1986. So there's a long history of this. We've tried thinking about it, talking about it. Shovels have never gotten in the ground. Will it be different this time? Who knows? But the possibility here is that there could be shovels in the ground as early as 2027.
Still to come in our show, Lethbridge residents about to get a huge property tax hike, and we tell you about the upcoming hike for life. All that next, but first, a quick break. Every year in Canada, approximately 100,000 abortions take place, which is the equivalent of 10 classrooms of children disappearing each day of the year. It's a jarring number, but should Canadians be concerned about it? Up next, BCN's Naveen Day speaks with a local teen who is concerned. She discusses how she's part of her school's ARPA club, which means Association for Reformed Political Action. Take a look.
The ARPA Club is a bunch of high school kids who get together to take political action, and our job is to equip and educate the public about abortion and other political matters.
And what has been your experience with other kids your age outside of your school?
I was recently in Calgary, and we went on the streets and we talked to a bunch of people who were just walking by, and many of the young people didn't actually have much of an opinion on abortion, especially the young guys. If you talk to a teenager, a young male teenager, they didn't really know what they thought, so it was easy to show them the problems with abortion. While the young girls, they mostly had a strong pro-choice stance on abortion.
And Dwayne, where are we at in Canada right now? Are attitudes toward abortion changing, or are they remaining the same?
Well, I think attitudes are starting to change. Certainly, it's an issue that continues to be front and center in the media. We still have, like you said earlier, 100,000 abortions a year, which is a real tragedy. And we're very excited to see young people like Dana and other young people mobilizing to make a difference on this issue. The only way that this is going to change is having the next generation stand up, recognizing that life has value from conception until natural death, and be willing to make a stand on that and then get involved politically carrying out their faith. I'm very encouraged that here in Lethbridge, we have a large youth portion of Lethbridge and District Pro-Life. Here at our school, we have 30 kids involved in the local ARPA club. So that's encouraging, and hopefully that can kind of swing the tide for people to recognize that all people have value, even if they're in their mother's womb.
And we're talking about a very divisive issue here. Why do you think so many Canadians are unsure about their feelings toward abortion? Is it likely most people just don't give much thought to this, or is it a lack of knowledge? Is it because we don't believe the fetus is a human being?
Well, I think it's a combination of all of those things. Certainly our job as Lethbridge and District Pro-Life, and as pro-life people across the country, is to educate people that the unborn are human. And so there's a lot of people that believe the unborn is just a glob of cells or something, other than human. But when we think about it scientifically, logically, human parents get together, they have human children. And so the unborn from the time of conception are human. Once people realize that, then usually it's pretty quick for them to jump fully on board the pro-life movement, that then all people have value. So you're partly right. People are indifferent or they haven't thought about it. But once the issue is set before them and they actually think about it, it makes sense that all people have value and that we need to stand up for them.
Now, let's talk about your annual Hike for Life that is coming up on Saturday, June 8th. Can you share some details as to the start time, where to meet, and what will be taking place and what donations will be going towards?
Absolutely. So thank you for bringing that up. So the annual Hike for Life is held on Saturday, June 8th. It's at the Kiwanis Shelter at Henderson Lake. Starts at 9 a.m. in the morning and it goes till about noon. This is really a celebration of life. We believe that people have value from conception until natural death. So we're going to celebrate life on that day. As I said earlier, we do a lot of different things in pro-life. We certainly educate, we put out advertising, we protest, we pray. But on this day, we celebrate life. And so people can come, there's no fee, it's free. They come, there's games for the kids, there's face painting, there's balloons, there's food, there's drink, there's free t-shirts for everybody. And we want you to come and celebrate life. But not only do we want people come, there are people that get sponsors to come and donate on the day towards Elsie's House, towards our staff, and towards our programs. And so it's our biggest fundraiser of the year. It usually raises over $60,000 towards our programs. And so it's a great day. We get 300-400 people out. And again, we love you to raise money for it, but we'd also just like you to come and celebrate life with us on that day. It's a really fun event.
We need to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more news from southern Alberta. Welcome back. Well, a man and woman from Lethbridge have died as a result of a collision which took place in the municipal district of Willow Creek on Tuesday. Police say the crash involved two Dodge Ram trucks and a Honda Civic on Highway 519 near Range Road 255. They say upon arriving at the scene, a 35-year-old man and a 31-year-old woman passenger of the Civic were found dead. The driver of the one Ram truck sustained no injuries, but the driver of the other Ram pickup suffered serious injuries and was taken by a ground ambulance to a Calgary hospital. The cause of the collision involving the three vehicles remains under investigation. Well, here in Lethbridge, an unpleasant surprise will soon hit mailboxes for homeowners: a property tax hike. City Council voted to approve its 2024 property tax and supplementary property tax rate bylaw. The municipal portion will increase by 5.1% this year. The provincial education tax levy is set to go up by an average of 6.04%. That includes a 7.26% rise for residential property owners and a 2.82% increase for commercial and industrial. As for the Green Acres tax levy, which funds senior housing, it will go up by 4.72%. In addition to the rise in tax levies, the city says the average residential property value increased by 5.3%. Multifamily units went up by 8% and non-residential by 6.2%. All 2024 property tax notices will be mailed out on May the 29th. The City of Lethbridge is launching a new outreach campaign as part of its encampment strategy. It will combine the efforts of Lethbridge Police and the Watch program to help the city's most vulnerable. City officials say the Watch will now have help from outreach specialists at Community Social Development to respond in real time. General Manager of Community Social Development, Andrew Malcolm, says while changes may not be visible, help is being provided.
With the changes that we've proposed and are moving forward with now, the general public really won't notice a difference. What we want to do for the general public is continue with the consistency that they would have seen in 2023, with an ability to report an encampment, and that in a fairly short turnaround, they will see that encampment being taken down, and those individuals that are in the encampment being offered supports to connect them to social services and hopefully ultimately housing.
The current encampment strategy costs close to $876,000 per year, with just over $153,000 coming from the operating budget this year. Well, the Southern Alberta Art Gallery has opened a new exhibition with the young aspiring artist in mind. The art being showcased is from students in kindergarten through grade 12 in Lethbridge.
The Art Gallery's longest running program, Arts Alive and Well in the Schools. So it's the 47th year of this ongoing exhibition program, which started just the year after SAG opened, so started in 1977. And we're showcasing artworks from artists all across Lethbridge from grades K to 12. So we have, I believe, over 270 artists in the exhibition. Some have their work projected on the walls, and a lot of artists from grades 9 to 12 are showcased in the gallery. So we just had our opening last week, so artists and families can all come and see all the shows together. Probably a good estimate of 17,000 artworks from students in Lethbridge.
Tourism. Lethbridge got to play a little tour guide as they hosted other tourism frontline workers and top Lethbridge attractions. Dominic Wojcik, Senior Director of Communications at Tourism Lethbridge, says the goal is to create a better visitor experience, which leads to stronger economic impact for the city.
So today we are on the VIP tours, which is the Visitor Information Provider tours. These tours are for our frontline workers to teach them a little bit about creating a better visitor experience for our visitors coming into Lethbridge. We all know that as a visitor, we want the locals' input of where are the hot spots to eat and what's there to do. And so we are just trying to inform the community and showcase some of our best of Lethbridge items so they can create that experience for our visitors. So today we are going to Nikayuko Japanese Gardens. We are at CASA at the Southern Alberta Art Gallery, as well as the Galt Museum. Visitor experience directly leads to economic impact, because we know that the more visitors we have, the better experiences they have. They're going to want to extend their stays, come again, tell their friends and family.
Well, still to come, getting through a drug or alcohol addiction is a difficult journey that might give someone reason to celebrate their recovery. After the break, we examine a 12-step program with that very name right here in Lethbridge.